a publisher, and one day my daughter Christina asked me to write a novel with her. Well, that day was long ago, and that little girl is now an adult. But our novels live on. The Truth Seekers Mystery Series highlights a homeschool family, the Murphy teens, in an action-adventure novel that is sure to entertain as well as teach creation truths. To get your copy, visit our website at truthseekersmysteryseries.com.
This is a production of the Ultimate Homeschool Radio Network. Welcome to the Vintage Homeschool Mom Show. Your host, Felice Gerwitz, is an author, a publisher, and your radio show host. She will encourage, educate, and inspire you with answers to your most pressing questions from homeschool, marriage, parenting, and much more. Felice loves to equip moms to live a Christian life because every moment counts. Be sure to visit her website at mediaangels.com. And here's your host, Felice Gerwitz.
Hey friends, welcome. Well, are you a peacemaker? Recently I've been convicted that I need to aim toward that goal in a focused way. As parents, it's not always easy to have peace or to facilitate peace among our children or even our spouse. In this podcast, we are going to explore the elements of peacemaking, and I'm going to challenge you to show your children through example how to demonstrate this gift to others. Welcome everyone, my name is Felice Gerwitz, and this is an episode of Vintage Homeschool Moms. This is episode 526, and you can find today's show notes at vintagehomeschoolmoms.com, or you can go to the Ultimate Homeschool Podcast Network and look for the show, and the show notes will be there. Well, as a parent, you will more than likely find some portion of your day spent keeping the kids from fighting or keeping the peace between your child and your spouse. If you have a large family, you're definitely in this role whether you want to be or not. I never considered myself a peacemaker, especially with two younger siblings. They were 7 and 8 years younger than me, and my role was firmly entrenched. I thought I was the boss, and I didn't have any opportunities to babysit for other families since my parents had a built-in babysitter. But I didn't mind. I realized later that I was in the role of peacemaker because I kept my two brothers, only 13 months apart, from fighting often. We all strive for peace in our homes. It makes it so much easier to manage our household when our children get along. We find that our days go so much better and we can actually get things done. In order for this to happen, we have to have cooperation and an understanding that can be forged, especially when the children understand the consequences. Before I delve into specifics, I wanted to share with you what a quick search turned up. If you search for the definition of a peacemaker, you're going to be as disappointed with the results as I was if you're using an AI-generated search. AI, as we know, lacks heart, and here's an excerpt of what I found. A peacemaker in your family is often a person who takes on the role of mediator, intermediator, and mediator. Yes, it said it twice. To pacify those who are irritable or angry. This role is often assigned to them by their parents or caregivers when they were young, and it can be a heavy burden to carry. The peacemaker's job is to keep the peace by smoothing out differences and avoiding conflict, often at the expense of their own needs and desires. There was more, but I'm going to comment on some of that. Do your own search and find out if it lacks the same amount of heart. Sure, some elements of it were correct, but a lot of it was really robotic. Some of the characteristics that were listed are as follows. They are often drawn into complaints of tension with other family members. They may have a hard time saying no or setting boundaries. They may prioritize others' needs over their own. They may struggle with anger or assertiveness. They may feel responsible for others' emotions and well-being. Let me go back, and I want to comment on each of those things. The first is they are often drawn into complaints of tension with other family members. I don't think any of us are drawn into complaints, but I do feel we need to set the record straight, and either we allow our children to figure out a beneficial solution to their problem, or we help them in some way. And obviously, it depends on how old they are. This next one, they may have a hard time saying no or setting boundaries. I don't believe that's true. If you're a peacemaker, you do set boundaries, otherwise chaos would ensue if there is no peace. A peacemaker is not someone who just rolls over and lets people do what they want, but it is someone who is somewhat diplomatic, I would think. The AI results also said they may prioritize others' needs over their own. Yes, this applies to all parents. By definition, a good parent is selfless, not to the detriment of the child. In other words, we don't let them act horribly, but we do many things we'd rather not, like get up in the middle of the night to care for our children, or take care of our kids when they're hurt or sick, or cook and clean. Parent. Another response was they may struggle with anger or assertiveness. That's rich. Because you're a peacemaker, you are angry. Assertive, yes, I can see this, but angry, not so much. How can a peacemaker being at peace and anger coexist? Don't you love AI? Another from the AI-generated response was they may feel responsible for others' emotions and well-being. Now, this one, I agree, is not so much of a stretch. I think we sometimes fail at parenting because we want everyone happy. Well, that's my issue anyway. And sometimes we blame ourselves, again, me, but that's part of parenting. The discussion in the research went on to talk about the effects of being a peacemaker and the difficulty one has in this role, but I'll spare you that list. What I will say is that the answer to breaking free from the role of a peacemaker is narcissism. The suggestions, I believe, are ridiculous. I do believe that being a peacemaker means communicating effectively and assertively. In addition, it means setting boundaries. Harmony in families take place when there is mutual respect, and often respect is expected but not given in return. I remember one of my older sons would say, my younger, brothers and sisters don't respect me and I'm way older. And we told him that's right because you show disrespect to us and they're copying you. And they figured that if you can't respect your parents, why should they respect you? He knew what the others should do, but he didn't apply that same standard to himself. And this is something that we as parents need to correct. Also, many times parents expect their kids to do what they're told while not also being a good role model. You know the old saying, do what I say and not what I do? Just as in expecting good character, it should be demonstrated by our daily actions in order to be copied. And yes, I know this isn't always easy. This brings me to a list of suggestions and ideas that may be beneficial to your family, but first is a scripture verse I wanted to share with you. Matthew 5:9, Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called sons of God. Yes, Jesus means women too here, sons and daughters of God, if that makes you feel better for those of you who may be agitated by that. To be a peacemaker means to be peaceful yourself. You know how we never put ourselves first, most of us that is. Now might be a good time to take a look at your schedule and get up a bit earlier or stay up a bit later and relax. For me, it was a bath nightly. It was a luxury to have that 30 minutes alone and to relax, and I was so rejuvenated afterwards, and it helped me sleep. That is, until I had to wake up and feed the baby. But what is it that you can do to create a little bit of time when you can just relax and get recharged? This is important. I've listed some episodes in the podcast show notes that you can listen to that also go along with this topic. So, how do you deal with conflict? Do you expect your children to figure it out on their own? And this is typical in larger families. I see this in my daughter's family, and the kids do a pretty good job of it. This is a huge indicator of how loud or effective the conflict resolution will turn out to be, because it's pretty loud over there. I watched my grandchildren right before an event at my daughter's house, and two of the siblings ran upstairs, one chasing the other, demanding a toy that the other had taken. My daughter continued to finish her preparations, and other than saying to the boys, "Keep it down," there wasn't any other comment. When the older of the two grandsons came down, I walked over and quietly said, "You are so blessed that you have the mother you have, because if I was your mother, you would be in big trouble. You do realize that making your brothers angry is not productive." And he answered, "Yes, Grandma, but if you were my mother, you would have nipped this in the bud." And he named another sibling who apparently started the incident, taking the item and handing it off to the youngest, knowing that there would be a fight, which he enjoyed, let me tell you, from the wings without getting in trouble himself. So I kiddingly laughed with him and I said, "Yes, heads would have rolled." We parent differently. The boys did figure it out loudly, but apparently that is allowed. If my daughter micromanaged every situation, it would be exhausting. The children, however, do have some parameters. This is not a right or a wrong, just an observation, that allow for this behavior. They do get along for the most part. We've taken them to restaurants and often been complimented on how good the kids are. Look at your own parenting style. What behaviors, right or wrong, do you allow? This is an indicator of the behavior of the children. I realized that I was a threatening, repeating parent after attending a parenting seminar. Once I realized this, I learned how to remedy it by actually following through and doing what I said I would do in the threat. The kids quickly learned it was no longer an empty threat and Mom would follow through. Being a peacemaker can be taught as well, asking your children, especially those who tattle, if they're being peacemakers. You may need to define it first if you have little ones. Here's a breakdown of what that looks like. The first is if kids tell on each other. They have to come and tell you what's going on. When it's not life-threatening, it's a way to get someone in trouble for no good reason. So ask the child if he's being a peacemaker or if he's trying to get his or her sibling in trouble. If he answers in trouble, ask for an apology, and better yet, to apologize to the sibling. Taking it one step further, ask your child how he can encourage his brother or sister to make good choices. My daughter often asks her children if they are making good choices. This is a great way to put the responsibility on their shoulders, and it's effective. And the response or lack of response is telling. Making a good choice can be something you practice. You can put the children through different scenarios. All of the character planners on the Media Angels website contain lessons that focus on character and questions the children can ask each other, and they can also act out. There are 2 different 12-pack planners, and you can see those links on the show notes or just go to mediaangels.com/store and scroll down to the bottom. I believe that's where the planners are. In addition, teaching the children that choices have consequences is part of the follow-through that I discussed above. Focus on the Family has a great article, and I put the link in the show notes, that covers some of the same points and additional ones that I made. The main idea is that if you attempt to bring the family together, do it in a positive way to head off conflict. When bored, children will find ways to entertain themselves, and unfortunately, it's to the detriment of others. Keeping the family united and under one roof is a goal for many, and having peacemakers in your family is a blessing. We shouldn't take it for granted. And unlike AI, I don't think peacemakers are typically appointed. I think God raises them in each of our families. I pray this episode was beneficial. Please share this episode with a friend and give me a star rating on your favorite podcast app. Until next time, I will talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Thanks for tuning in to the Vintage Homeschool Mom Show. Visit Felice at MediaAngels.com and TheVintageHomeschoolMoms.com. Vintage Homeschool Moms is a production of the Ultimate Homeschool Radio Network.